Welcome back. Municipalities across the country are facing a critical shortage, which has been cited as a major factor in their decline. In Emfuleni, in the Vaal region, residents are battling a severe sanitation crisis with raw sewage flooding their communities. The situation highlights the urgent need for skilled engineers, town planners and artisans for maintaining and improving infrastructure. This morning, we explore the extent of the skills gap in the potential solutions with Dr. Myeza, who is the CEO of the Council for the Built Environment. Dr. Myeza, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. So what have you noted from the lack of skills within our municipalities over the past couple of years?
Good morning, Aldrin, and thank you for the opportunity. Look, I just want to preface my input by making the following statement. If you're a municipal manager running any municipality in this country, be it a metro, be it a municipality in Wambonambi, you are expected to comply with 500 odd pieces of legislations, policies, circulars, practice notes, and all of those requires you to have a competent team of administrators that you must work with. Now, coming to the issue of infrastructure. So the infrastructure sector is not immune to the deficiencies and lack of capacity that these municipalities are grappling with. And I think there are a number of reasons why is that. I mean, from the work we've done as a Council for the Built Environment, we have observed that in the last 20 years or so, local government has actually lost well-experienced administrators in the infrastructure space. And there are young people who are coming through into the system, but because they don't have mentors, they are not able to transition from being candidates to become professionally registered person who can assist government with the capacity that's required to discharge infrastructure programs. And I think, for me, the starting point is when we talk about skills gap or lack of skills in local government, we must contextualize it in the manner that looks at academically trained individuals, individuals that have been exposed in their work experience, and lastly, competently assessed by a regulatory body to demonstrate or to confirm the competence that is required for one to be called a civil engineer. You must go through those three phases that I've referred to. So for me, that's really where we must begin. And I think one of the issues that we always argue from our side is that it's a long-term investment. And I think we must do that with a matter of urgency.
Yeah. Is it a matter of South Africa as a country doesn't have enough civil engineer skills, or is it a case of municipalities are unable to attract those civil engineers? And the reason that I'm asking this question is that before it has been noted that some engineers, or let's say some professionals within the local government sphere would resign from local government, but then would then be hired back as consultants.
It's a two-pronged approach. One, for a professionally registered person to work in a municipality in Zanin or in Zerast, surely those municipalities should be able, one, to pay adequately. But secondly, these small towns don't offer anything else beyond just an employment opportunity. So you find that as you start off your career as a young professional, you'll get a job in a small municipality. But as soon as you acquire adequate experience, you'll then migrate into big cities like Joburg, Cape Town, or eThekwini, or Nelson Mandela Bay. It's the nature of how young people are migrating in search for not only economic opportunities, but lifestyles, which smaller municipalities in the country might not offer. And I think that's one aspect. The second aspect relates to the point that you are raising, wherein someone will work for local government and then resign and then go and consult in the same space. And I think there must be a dedicated capacity on how you ensure that you build capacity within local government so that at least they are able to discharge the responsibilities that is actually entrusted with them.
Yeah, so it's a case of retaining those skills as well and the ability to retain those skills. Does it that mean that you need to have an approach that is not centralized and it's not necessarily standardized, where you say that, like for instance, we know with doctors and sometimes with teachers as well, if you're working in a rural area, there is an additional fee that you get on top of your salary because of working in such an area, a rural area, this is.
I do know that couple of years ago, there was a program that was run through COCTA as well as DPSA, which was more about, I think it was called Occupational Dispensation Program, which was intended to address the very same point you're raising. But I think what actually the intended consequences of that program is that if I'm a newly graduate from Wits University and I find myself working in Taung as a town planner, and there is no incentive for me to become professionally registered person because already I'm earning close to R1 million. I'm using an example. I'm not saying that's what they earn.
Sure.
And I'm earning an amount that is way above what is actually expected of me as a professionally registered person. So what you find that colleagues will then take these offers as OSD employees. They will never be able to register as professionals because in those spaces, they will lack mentors, they won't have exposure to the actual required work. As a result, they stay as candidates. And I think that's the area which we haven't been speaking about at length, wherein graduates come out of university with the required qualifications, but they are not able to become professionally registered person. And I think if you read the framework that was approved by Cabinet in 2020, it highlights that issue that we need to find a mechanism of converting academic trained professionals in the built environment to become professionally registered, because those are people that you require. It's not only the academic training that you have, but you require someone who can sign off designs, who can approve building plans. That person must have been competently assessed by a regulatory body, and that's really where the bottleneck is.
Yeah, so why can't we do it exactly like how it's done in the health sector when it comes to doctors?
I think that's really where we've been directed to do now, working with the relevant authorities, including the National School of Government. We have now developed a strategy on how to ensure that the pipeline is sustainable, i.e., so there must be consistency across the built environment disciplines, that how long does it take for one to become a professional registered person? Currently, you find other bodies, let's take town planners, it's 2 years. Engineers, it's at most 5 years. QS is 3 years. So there is no consistency in the industry on how long does it take for one to become a professional registered person. That's one issue which we are addressing now. The second issue is to ensure that within the service delivery departments or entities, you have your internal capacity that is going to mentor these young professionals as they graduate, so that at least they can learn. I think I always make this point, Aldrin, that you cannot teach what you don't know. And I think it's important that as you come out from the university, there's someone who's holding your hand, who's well experienced, and that person will help you to build confidence and be able to become a useful professional for the country moving forward. And I think that is where we've been lacking as a country, in my view. And I think I realize that, and that's why we're actually
Okay, apologies, Doctor, Dr. Myeza. We seem to have a problem there. Some gremlins creeping in that line that we have to you currently. Just quickly going to see if we can re-establish that line to Dr. Myeza. And I think one of the issues that I want to raise in this conversation as well is, you'd remember back in 2021, the then Minister of Water and Sanitation, Lindiwe Sisulu, procured the services of around 24 Cuban engineers. And one of the issues that she had raised was because of the lack of skills that we have in the country. There was some pushback with regards to that. But one of the points that she raised as well was that locally qualified engineers do not want to go and work in rural areas. Let's see if we do have Dr. Myeza back. We don't have Dr. Myeza back. We're going to see if we can re-establish that line. So there was that pushback against the assertion that was made by the Minister of Water and Sanitation at the time, that the country doesn't have the necessary critical skills when it comes to civil engineers. Dr. Myeza, I was sharing now with our viewers one of the points that was raised by the then Minister of Water and Sanitation, Lindiwe Sisulu, when she had acquired the services of around 24 Cuban engineers. She said that the problem is that the country doesn't have the skills. And I remember at the time there was a pushback against this. But then with the picture that you are painting, what does this mean? Because it seems as though that the gap is then left open.
Look, I think for me, that's one of the areas that we are trying to address. We don't think that we don't have adequately built environment trained individuals in this country. We think where we're lacking is that these individuals who've gone through TVET colleges, universities, they are required to go through a competency training so that they can become professionals. When you say professionals, you mean someone who is holding a license to practice. And that is where our blockage is. So the import of skills from other countries, it's useful in the short term. However, in the long term, I think for me, we should be focusing on training our locally based professionals and expose them to the work opportunities that exist in the state.
Yeah. Are you able to share with us in terms of engineers that do have the necessary competency tests and have passed those competency tests? What are we looking at in terms of vacancies then for municipalities? Is that known at all?
It is known. I know the institution like your LGCTA working with SALGA, that information is available. At the top of my head, I would say the vacancy rates, I'm not talking about vacancies in the administrative space. I'm talking about vacancy rate in terms of professionals. We are looking at about 20% across the board. And I think this is not only a small municipality matter. You can go to the cities like your metros, they also grappling with a similar challenge. They might have the benefits because some they've got entities that are able to discharge this capacity. However, it is I wouldn't say a crisis, but I think it's a challenge that most municipalities are grappling with in terms of just having the right mix of young graduates together with the professionally trained, registered professionals in the local government space. So it is a space that requires us to really drive and pay attention to.
Yeah, thank you so much for making time for us. Dr. Msizi Myeza is the CEO for the Council for the Built Environment there on the shortages of skills when it comes to civil engineers, especially for local municipalities. Still to come here on the AM Report, Andy Mahamba will bring us the latest from the world of sports. Stay tuned.